This is Ed, and I'm in San Diego. I took this picture a few weeks ago uh, from Harbor Island, which is in the downtown area across from San Diego Airport. And so there I am floating around the water. And okay,
Yeah, but can you splash?
no, but I will make a splash doing this show. So welcome, both of you, and there'll be a few more joining, I think. And this is all about storytelling. So I'm telling a story about walking on Harbor Island, taking pictures, and with Joanne, but she's not in the camera right now. Yeah. So storytelling. Um, is it part of, Larry, is it part of wellness? I mean, when you think of storytelling and a joie de vivre kind of an approach, is it part of mental well-being to be able to tell a story?
Well, I think so. I do think that a good story does need a villain.
A,
And
a villain. Ooh.
in Parkinson's, we certainly have a villain. And I guess part of dealing with that story with Parkinson's is a wellness part, because that's the hero in all of us, living well as best we can in the face of this adversity. So I think anybody with Parkinson's, anybody challenged with anything adverse related, there's a story to be told. Statistically, when it comes to Parkinson's, I was just attending a conference over the weekend, and the statistics are pretty daunting. Um, just to share with you, because I know, David, we are tribe members, that the global burden of disease study estimated that in 2040, there'd be 12 million cases of Parkinson's worldwide.
Wow.
An update, though, from 2018 to 2024 revealed that we've already reached 11.8 million. So the incidence prevalence is increasing, and 1 in 15 people will be diagnosed with Parkinson's uh, in the coming years. So it's now the fastest growing neurodegenerative disease in the world. So there's quite a story to tell in living with it as best we can.
My concern is that while there have been advancements in stimulus, brain stimulus, the medication, the less drastic approach, that the medication is stagnant.
Right,
And it's still a lot of, well, let's try this and see if it'll do something, and let's try that and see if it will do something and not hurt you.
right,
And other than that, it's the levodopa and the carbidopa, and all those are going to do is make you throw up a lot.
right, right. Um,
Interesting. So is there a stat about a breakdown between male, female?
um, it doesn't, in my opinion, what I've read, there isn't one over the other in terms of majority. It affects everybody more or less equally across genders. Um, Women obviously have certain other symptoms that they've got to deal with, which obviously is as important. But no, it doesn't discriminate in terms of gender or race or anything else.
Yeah. So Larry, let's step aside from this for a second. Tell us about your position with Rogers and congratulations, Stu.
Um, what position is that?
Oh, I thought you, I'm sorry. I was taking an inductive leap here because of your email address at
Oh,
Rogers.
no, no,
Yeah,
no.
right.
It's like
That is,
AT&T. You just.
Okay.
yeah. I've returned to my good old faithful Rogers email because I've had some issues with my accessibility and social media. There's some scary people out there in the world, and got to be careful these days. So I sort of have gone a bit silent on social media. So I've returned to my Rogers email address.
Uh-huh. Wow. Yeah, I've been fortunate so far that haven't been attacked. I've got redundant systems,
Right.
Avast, and something else. I forget.
I
And
always,
it's
I
really
always, I always wonder what the hell I have that anybody would want.
Yes, well, exactly. I must say it's quite liberating being off social media. You kind of realize that there is a life in the real world,
that's interesting. Yeah.
Back
So
to, back to
yes.
the topic, there's a
Yeah.
couple of things, couple of anecdotes on storytelling that might be worth looking at. One is in 1971, Rod Stewart had a song on an album called Every Picture Tells a Story,
Oh,
um, which had absolutely nothing to do with this. But it's true that every picture does tell a story.
Right.
Second thing is the late Don Hewitt at 60 Minutes, who basically said, the things that get on are the people that come to me and say, I have a story to tell you. And that even if you look at 60 Minutes last night, I realize that may not happen up north, but um, there's still stories to be told. And, they're not nursery rhymes. They're stories about real life and what's happening in the world and how they impact people. And and so you're still in a world where when you are opening a conversation with someone, you're imparting information. You're telling them a story. Sometimes you're making it up, sometimes you're not.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's right. And I think the issue is, storytelling is a good topic because, we live in a public world, and in the first few years, it was a question of, maybe hiding what I had when I was out in public and revealing my true self with my family and friends. But that placed a burden on me to sort of live this double life. Being out in the public, I had to do or maybe come up with excuses, the way I was feeling, the way I looked, until you tell the full story, and you start looking at yourself in the mirror and realizing that you've only got one life to live, and you've got to live it. And it was interesting when I revealed that story to the greater public. Some were very supportive, some were not. Some had consequences. But I do think the storytelling is being true to yourself first, accepting what you've got, and then trying to live the best life that you can within those means.
I have two things about how I feel and look. I mean, I actually feel and look pretty good, but the one thing I can't do is sign my name anymore
Right.
because I don't have the stability in it. So I'm either doing it electronically from a signature that I saved several years ago,
Right.
or I have this rubber stamp that I use when I need to do something physically.
Right.
And it was made from a signature I put down on paper in 2014,
Right.
but it works.
That's right. And I think that's a good example of how we adapt, to our conditions. Um, and I've realized that I've looked at my whole journey with Parkinson's very differently from the start. At one stage, I was going to outlive it. I was going to out train it, out diet it, outrun it. But I've realized that it's a question of living well in a step down disease, that, during the plateaus, we can do certain amount and have to adapt. And your example is great. I mean, my example is that I have a stand up mouse where I can grip it. I don't put my hand on top of it. I use a stand up vertical mouse.
Yeah.
And so most recently, I've started using walking poles because of my dragging right leg. I mean, in years gone by, that would have thrown me into a depression, and I would have slammed the door and buried myself, you know, under my covers. But as part of the storytelling, we still have to live. I mean, the alternative is what, you know, to lock yourself up and disappear. So that is what I think part of the story is as well, is living in the moment, doing the best job we can in a progressive illness.
Well, I have a very simple philosophy about life. This is who I am. You don't like it, go yourself.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because this is me.
Right.
And the ability, what has not been impacted is my brain function.
Right.
And I still am able to think critically or do what we in my industry would call 360-degree thinking.
Right. Good. Good.
And
Excellent.
I can do it. Now, you want me to write it down? I can type with one hand.
Right.
Sometimes it requires a little work. I've tried the dictation software and the Microsoft product, and it's really terrible.
Yeah, I
I
found the same.
mean, you know, if I have a 3-line email and to dictate, it'll take me 20 minutes to correct all the errors from, I mean, I think
That's right.
I speak pretty clearly, but Microsoft disagrees with me.
Right.
So on this thing, you know, on Zoom, there's the note taking is automatic. So you don't
Right.
have to write anything down. It's all being recorded.
What I wanted to share with you is this new, I'll bring it to the camera. That's my iPhone, but can you see what it is? Attached to it is the old BlackBerry keyboard,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
manufactured by a company ex RIM techies, but it's given me the manual dexterity back of my thumbs, you know, because I can never use the glass. I never felt comfortable with a glass interface from
Yeah.
the iPhone, but this gives you the tactile functionality, which is I can rest it on my fingers and then type it.
What
And
did what did that add-on cost?
this is a detachable unit manufactured by Clicks. It's about $150.
Okay.
And for me, I wrote to them because I told them that this essentially has taken me back to the future, because it allows me to have that tactile feel to stabilize my tremors. And I've enjoyed that and have spoken to them. They're going after the younger generation. Apparently, everybody's very excited about it. But I said, hey, this is also very good for people with Parkinson's, and there's an accessibility issue which they should be proud of, because it does allow, you know, us to get back into that. So that's what I wanted to share. Another adaptive.
Thank you very much for breaking that news on this program. Wow. That's meaningful for me.
Yeah.
Dave, let me ask you a question. Do you, I invite you to delve back into your early days in with, say, ABC News, when you were in New York and you were a very busy guy with a lot of responsibility at a young age. Um, I'm really impressed. I was impressed then and even now uh, when I'm playing this game here with you guys, uh, and yet you were doing the big thing, the big network. So, I mean, how do you deal with all that stuff? Could you give us a little insight, and that'll be an interesting story for a few minutes.
See the big picture and take one step at a time to get there. It's really very simple. I mean, you know, there's a certain protocol, if you will, whether it was written down or not, when something major happens,
Uh-huh.
what needs to be done. Plus, and the fact is that, you know, 40 years ago when I was doing that, 45, 50 years ago, I was a lot younger, but but it was the kind of thing where you knew what had to be done and you worked on doing it. I mean, my greatest, I was asked once what my greatest achievement at ABC was, and it was the fact that I was able to get 3 television signals into 2 satellite paths on the end of the Iran hostage story. Because in those days, there was what they called Major Path 1 out of Europe, and then there was Backup Path number 2. And the other objective was if you had to, you could go the other way to Asia, then across the Pacific, and then across the US, which would add the 2 paths would cost you $20,000 a minute.
Wow.
If you went the other way, that $2,000 a minute became about $7,000 a minute. So while we were operating under instructions from Roone Arledge that said, if it's about Iran, don't worry about the money. Spend what you need to spend and spend it as often as you need to. And basically we did. I mean, the corporation provided the news division with $1 million a day for unexpected items, which at the end of the day, if it wasn't used or any part of it wasn't used, it went back to the corporation. So we had pretty much an unlimited budget to go ahead and do what needed to be covered. The third feed that I was telling you about, we had a feed out of Algiers. No, we didn't have a feed out of Algiers. We had a feed out of London, which could take in on surface facilities, Iran and anything like that. We had a feed out of Reistings, RAI, Italian television, which would bring in some of the German stuff, but we had to get stuff out of Northern Africa, out of Algeria. And company and organization in that side of the world called Eurovision, known for its song contest more today than anything else. But every government broadcaster in that part of the world was a Eurovision member. And they all had facilities to take stuff in from London. What we did and what I suggested be done is they turn the microwave dishes and go the other way. So we were able to bring Algiers into London, the Goonhilly Downs, which is where the uplink was. And I always like saying Goonhilly, which has been torn down and is now a racetrack for horses. But I remember the greatest achievement we had was it was 7 o'clock on a Sunday morning, and NBC, because all of the networks were working together, NBC needed to bring Algiers in for an 8:30 a.m. Eastern time for Meet the Press. And I'm sitting on my fingers waiting for some word out of there. And at about 8:23, one of our people in Racings called and said, "I see Algiers in the switcher." And that took 5.5 hours to arrange, and not to mention Algiers, Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, Italy. To get them to turn dishes was like, "Are you sure you want to do this? We've never done that before." So yeah, I think that was pretty good. And my reward for doing that was to be on hostage release day, and the week after, I was the foreign broadcast pool producer, which meant I get to tell people what feeds they could look at and what they couldn't. And we were ordering stuff up so that nobody else could get into the satellite business that we were in, that we were ordering stuff up for 24 hours at original stuff. And domestically, we had 52 hostages, so we had as many as 52 feeds. Now, nobody's got the facilities to receive 52 feeds, so we were bringing things like San Diego into Atlanta, and at the AT&T test board in Atlanta, they would plug in the appropriate feed on guidance. Bring us in San Diego, and some plug would disappear from Little Rock or something, and there would be. So it was a major game of logistics, and nowadays you don't have that logistics thing because you see video out of everywhere very easily, where they are merging 3 cellular telephone circuits, which is why you get video instantly from anywhere in the world. And technology is called Live View. And as long as you can get a cellular signal, you can come in from anywhere, anytime, anyhow. I mean, and if you have any doubts about that, look at places where you would say, gee, how could they do that? Because it's Russia, or it's a Ukraine battlefield, or it's Gaza. Just an amazing concept, but what laid the path to that was Iran. Made it easy because it was always, you had to get a satellite feed out of a country like Iran. You had to make sure you had the uplink, you had the path, and the foreign broadcaster, because they needed to originate the feed, and you needed to be able to bring it into. At the time in New York, it was the Gulf and Western Building, where
Let me ask you a question, Dave. How did you get cooperation from inside Iran?
money talks and nobody walks.
Yeah, so the broadcasting people
Ten
had
thousand
approval.
dollars, $10,000 a day for the use of their facilities.
I see. And they wanted the news out there anyway, right?
Not necessarily, but
Uh-huh.
they
Okay.
wanted the $10,000 because they also got it in cash every day. We had people. I've only done this once, and I didn't do it to Iran, but we had people carrying 30, 40, $50,000 in their pants pockets every day in various locations. Algeria was bad. Iran was bad. There was a station in West Palm Beach that was bad. They didn't take $10,000, but it was always a challenge to determine what will. The answer was, what will it take? What do you need to see happen? What can we do to help you? What can we buy? And there was nothing to buy to cover the news. I mean, the news was covered straight. What the money bought was access to facilities, because without the access to facilities, you didn't get anywhere.
So without naming names, your prerogative. Uh, how did you learn how to do all this? I mean,
Trial and
you
error.
watched it happen.
Watch it happen, trial and error. Very good guidance from a lot of good people. I mean, I always say I was very fortunate to stand on the shoulders of a lot of people and to learn the business. One of whom I spent a lot of time with through the years was a guy named Peter Jennings. When he went on the road, I went on the road, and I learned a lot from him, and I learned a lot of this kind of threading the needle, if you will, from things he taught me. And I had other people. The greatest boss I ever had, Stan Opatowski, who was in charge of news. he was the news coverage king for many years. And, you know, he basically he was a guy that could keep a cigarette ash intact all the way from the top to the bottom.
And I think that Peter Jennings was a Canadian, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was an amazing concept. And, you know, I learned various things that made sense in the days of terrestrial facilities, and in other words, phone lines
Right.
across the country. If you had to come out of Canada,
Yeah.
the path from Canada was either through Minot, North Dakota, or Attica, New York.
Right.
Now, why the hell they ever chose those two locations, I'll never know, but that's where the wires were.
Where were you in 1972? Because I just watched the
How
movie
far? Yeah.
with the
The September 5th
Perfect.
movie.
Okay.
yes. Have you watched that, Dave?
I watched it a couple of times. I was not quite there yet, but
Right.
I knew I knew all these people.
I'm sure. Because
And you know, the movie took some liberties in time and facilities, but
right.
it showed you the kinds of things you had to do
Yes.
to get something done. And you know, sometimes your sin was a sin of omission to certain people to get
Right.
in there, and other times, like when you told the cops to get the fuck out,
Yes.
you know, that was the other thing you learned.
Yeah, I understand that they use the real footage as part of the movie, which is usually which is great testament to their commitment to trying to maintain what was happening in real time. And it was
Real footage from the Jim McKay and
right,
stuff like that, and they wove into that script reenactments, you know, for lack of a better phrase,
right,
from the actors playing the part. But
right,
it was the kind of thing. I mean, the classic example of how to tell the story was when they
Yep.
were taping cans
So
of
they're going to be here in
film,
20, 30 minutes?
taping cans of film
Okay,
to
well, I'm going to end this
a
and I'll start
messenger,
taking stuff
if
out
you
of,
will, so
okay.
that they could get them
So
out.
they're
What
going to
was
have to help us
amazing was
shut the
how
water
fast
off
they were
in
able
the
to process
refrigerator,
the film, because
freezer.
in
I don't know
those
how to do
days
that.
you couldn't process film in less than an hour.
right, right. Yes. No, it was fascinating just to see the inside of the studio, how they coordinated all of it. Fascinating.
And that was built from nothing.
I
Right.
have to
Yeah,
interject that we need to conclude this in the next 5 or 6 minutes. I really appreciate you guys being on the show, and Mark Holo is in the background. I don't know why he's not being visible. Mark, if you care to come on and say hi quickly, now's the time. The show needs to conclude in the next 5 or 6 minutes. Dave, I really appreciate you sharing all this very cool information.
It was a great time, and it's a time that can't be duplicated today because of the world has changed, the audience has changed. I mean, you remember back in my days of prime, you know, that NBC led their evening news for 2 months with the words, General Francisco Franco remains in grave condition, which was, he was close enough to it that he eventually got to be in grave condition.
That's
Well,
funny. Oh, hey, Mark Colo, welcome.
Mark.
How you doing, Ed?
um,
Yeah, so my brother Dave,
David, I
Mark,
remember you.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, Mark, thank you for coming on. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to conclude this in about 5 minutes
That's fine.
because we have a refrigerator delivery guy coming here,
Okay.
and
Gotta keep the beer cold.
I gotta do things here. So, so Mark, you feeling good? What's happening?
Yeah. Can you guys all see me?
Yes. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
hanging on the bridge.
Okay. All right. I got a show coming up pretty soon with Larry, I think. We're going to be joining up on a program that we had through a mutual friend that we got to know over the years.
Oh, that's great.
Howard Fedoroff. So
Oh, very nice. Enjoy.
yeah, yeah, he's keeping quite busy. They got 82 million in funding, which is great. Yeah, that's good to find out.
Good.
Yeah. Have you had follow-up, Mark, with Jana, Dr. Jana Stoudemire?
I haven't recently, no, but I've thought about reaching out to her. Would you like me to?
I've sent her a business email, but it got bounced.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I don't know whether she's still with them or not.
Okay.
And so and I know you have a personal relationship, so that's why I'm asking you to look
I'll
into
put
that.
some feelers out there, Ed, and see what I can find out.
Yeah, and when you talk to her, tell her that I'd like her to come on the show again. And
Yeah, that'd be fun.
yeah, that would be great. Thank you guys for being on this program. I'll send you the video links later today. This is Ed in San Diego. Fascinating conversation, storytelling. Wow. And folks, unrehearsed. That's wonderful. Thank you.
And all true.
Thank you.